Welcome, ladies, to the Real Estate Investor Show, providing inspiration, strategies, and insight to empower women investors to live balanced and financially free lives. Now, here are your co-hosts, Liz and Andressa.
So in today's episode, ladies, we have Nikki Taylor. She is an expert in helping foreigners find properties and purchase properties in Italy. What I think you're going to get a lot from today's episode is really the things that you should be doing as you buy properties in Italy, and also avoid doing those pitfalls that you don't want to make in another country.
And if you are thinking, what, investing internationally, just trying to invest out of state, well, this episode is for you. You might change your mind quickly.
Welcome back, ladies. This is Liz.
And this is Andressa.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Investor Show, where our passion is to empower women to live a financially free and balanced life. Right, Andressa? Week in and week out, we do that.
And day two. Fine.
We're so excited to be joined by Nikki Taylor for this week. Nikki, thanks so much for being on. We're really, really excited here to jump into your story and talking about investing in Italy. I am 100% Italian, so I cannot wait for this episode.
Liar, you were born in the U.S. Why you say you're 100% Italian?
Well, from a heritage perspective, from a cultural perspective. Yes, I am 100% American. I'm third generation. Third generation.
We're going to start from there. And you're Sicilian. Your dad's Sicilian, he told me.
Well, I'm half Italian and half Sicilian.
There you go. Now we can start.
Now we can start.
Now we get started.
But yes, I am American, but I am so excited about today's episode. And Nikki, as we jump in, what lesson has taken you the longest to learn along your journey?
Wow. Along my journey since being here in Italy, or along my journey in general in this industry?
In this industry.
That's a very interesting question, because I don't know what real estate is like in the States, but real estate in Italy is very, very, very different. So I would say that the longest lesson for me is to know that to not trust everyone that you meet, and maybe keep your cards to your chest a lot of the time. I'm quite an open person and I like to share, and sometimes it's better just to keep things to yourself and until you get to know people better. Yeah.
That's a great lesson.
That applies around the world, right? The cultures and the assumptions that we made. But we're going to talk about the Italian market and your journey there, which I'm very, very excited about. Talk to me why you made the decision to move from Australia to Italy and not to Portugal or any other country. Why have you selected Italy?
Okay. So when I was 21, I left my hometown of Perth, Australia, and I moved over to London. And I was in London for 12 years. And basically, after I'd been in London about a month, I took a trip to Florence. And I remember just being so awestruck by this beauty, the architecture. And it was very strange because I had this sensation of feeling like I was home. And I have no Italian heritage. I mean, my grandfather was Dutch, my grandmother was Polish, my family, my mother's side are Australian. So I didn't have any sort of family connection to Italy. And I had this very much, it was like a pull in my soul to feel very connected to this country. And I remember saying to myself at the time, one day I'm going to live here. And, I was 21 at the time, and I lived in London for 12 years. And during that time in London, I went back to Italy on holiday various times and fell in love with the country more and more and more. In 2012, I moved back to Australia, and I moved to Sydney. So not my hometown, but to Sydney. And I was working in the banking and finance industry, where I was working in London for Deutsche Bank, same bank. And I had a great life on paper. I had, an apartment with the Sydney Harbour Bridge view. I had a great social life. I had a very solid job, but there was something missing for me. Like, I'd been away from my country of Australia for 13 years and I didn't feel like home anymore. And cliched as it sounds, I wanted to find love. I wanted to have a family and settle down, have kids, all the things. And I was working 12 hours a day at Deutsche, and I just got classic burnout. Like I was just had enough. And it wasn't until I ended up in hospital with severe gastric stomach pains for about a week on a morphine drip. I was like really taking stock of where I was in my life. Where do I want to be? Where do I see myself the next 5 years? And I could just imagine that if I didn't make a change whilst I was single with, no partner, no children, that I'll probably end up never making that move. So it was funny. The idea of Italy was quite random because, like I said, I've always loved Italy. And I remember being out for a dinner one night in Sydney at an Italian restaurant with my girlfriend, and we were complaining about the Sydney dating scene, which is just ruthless. And I remember saying, I'm going to move to Italy. And it just kind of flew out of my mouth without even it was already it planned in my mind. And then I was entertaining the idea going, I could actually do this because I have UK citizenship, and from a visa perspective, it wasn't because before Brexit, it was very easy for me to enter into the EU. And I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So the next day I signed up for Italian lessons at an Italian school in Sydney. I gave myself 12 months to move to Italy. And that's exactly what I did. I kind of sold everything, quit my job, and moved over to Italy in December 2014 with 4 suitcases. And my friends and family said I was absolutely crazy to leave a secure career in banking, earning 6 figures, to go to a country where I didn't speak the language, that was going through a severe economic crisis.
So let's paint the picture, right? Paint the picture over there. Now, let's connect the dots. Where and when real estate came into your life when you were in Italy? How did you need real estate? Came to fruition.
Well, I worked in real estate as my very first job in Australia. I worked as a property manager, and I absolutely hated it. Property management was not for me. It was very stressful, but I've always had a passion.
Why are you talking about private management? Like toilets and tenants.
Property management is unforgiving. It's unforgiving.
I can't. I think I left like a day.
Yeah.
No, this is BS. Are we really talking about that? Come on, go get a flucky, what's called, to unclock, and then we'll be done. Or why are we talking about this? Get real.
I always had a passion for real estate. I love to look at the portals, the internet property portals. I love to know what things cost. And I remember when I first got to Italy, I was living in a town called Bolzano, which is the far northeast of the Italian border, on the borderline Austria. And they just didn't speak Italian there. They spoke German. So not only did I have to learn Italian, I had to learn German. And I remember thinking, during this year of before I moved to Italy, I kept applying for jobs. I kept seeing this thing called Tedesco. And I'm thinking, maybe it's a computer program. What I didn't realize that Tedesco is German. They wanted you to know German. And I was like, oh my God, so I'm screwed. How am I going to find a job? And I remember walking around, and I went through this aperitivo, and I saw this billboard written in English, and I was so excited because it was a billboard for a real estate company, England Volkers, which is a global luxury real estate brand. And they needed someone to speak English. It's like, oh my God, this has got my name on it. So I said,
did a spotlight come out oh.
It was just thank God something's written in English. And not this Tedesco stuff people keep talking about. And so I remember when my future boss called me, and she's become a really good friend, actually. She called me as I was having my afternoon siesta, my afternoon sleep after lunch. And she started talking to me in German. And I was like, and then she started talking to Italian. I was like, and then she started talking to English. And she said, I'm calling about your application. It's like, oh my God.
And gosh,
what a great
first impression.
I don't speak any of the languages, but they wanted me because I spoke English. So I started working in their office in Bolzano. We had 4 offices across Alto Adige, and they wanted me to assist with any client inquiries that came in English and help them through the process. That's how my start in real estate commenced in Italy many years ago, 8 years ago.
That's great. So you were really at the helm of helping people that were not in Italy buy real estate in Italy, which is super cool. So tell us a little bit about what some of the learnings you had. So you were obviously thrown into a new culture and obviously a new job. So you were probably learning everything at the same time, but you had the English piece on your side. So that was awesome. What were some of the things that you started to, became kind of top of mind of what you were sharing with these folks in terms of, what to avoid, strategies on how to do it? Like what were some of those big learned lessons that you shared with these folks that now are critical to the work you do?
I think my journey into work that I do more started down in Pulia, where I am now, because real estate in Bolzano, they're very precise. They cross the T's, they dot the I's. It wasn't until I came down to the south of Italy where it's a little bit more relaxed, bit more Wild Westy type kind of feel. And I noticed that a lot of people who I was interacting with had a lot of queries that were all very much the same. How can I find a team that I can trust? How can I restore a property? Like, are there any restrictions? Can I restore? Can I DIY this myself? Do I need to have a lawyer when I'm purchasing a property? Do I just use a notary? What are the closing costs? What's the buying process? Can I pay in cash and close immediately? How long is the closing process? How much can I negotiate? But these are all the same sort of questions. And obviously a lot of fears around buying in Italy, because you're buying a property in a different country. You're putting your money in the hands of someone that, may rip you off. You don't know, because estate agents here, and I'm not saying they're all like that, they can have a bit of a reputation. So as much as it's very much a dream for people, it also has a bit of the flip side. It can be quite scary.
From an investor's perspective, right? If I am somebody that is like, wow, yeah, I have an Italian heritage, or I have no idea about the Italian culture, but it sounds great. And I would like to have a vacation home or an investment property in Italy. Talk a little bit about the market and how you also became an investor.
Okay, so I have been working in both real estate and holiday rentals industry. So that's become, I guess, my niche, as you might say. And people ask me a lot, like, how can I invest in a holiday rental? And they have the same sort of questions, and they, where's the best place to invest? What's the cost? What will X, Y, Z amount investment get me? And I always have the same kind of answer to all these questions is, if you really want to buy somewhere that's going to generate a really great return, then Pulia is the place, hands down. Pulia has gone completely exploded in social media, publications around the world, as being a fantastic place to invest. And we are seeing a constant consistency of growth. It has surpassed Tuscany. Properties are not staying on the market very, very long. The property prices, because before, properties could stay on the market for months, even years. And let's face it, we don't have the same kind of finesse of home staging and photographs and, presenting properties. It's getting much better. But back when I first started working in the industry, the properties were very poorly presented. So sometimes we'll stay on the market for a very long time. Now things are completely changing. Pulia has become this buzz spot of where to invest. And there still are some really, really great areas where you can find, properties that are already set up as holiday rentals. So they're already guaranteed to give you an X amount of return. We can help you find out, what the back end rental history was. And then also, if you're buying a property that isn't already holiday rental, we can find something that meets that criteria that's going to give you what you want.
You mentioned population growth, right? What are the other criteria that is making this market very popular?
I think social media has become a huge part to play in the growth of Pulia. So when I first heard about Pulia was 2014, when my Italian teacher in Sydney said that she was from Pulia, and everyone in the class was like, where's that? We didn't know where it was. And then it wasn't until I came down here, and then you see, that we're in the land of the influencers now. Instagram is huge. architects have now got these massive followings on social media. They're doing documentaries, documenting, the projects they're doing. The towns in Pulia are so Instagrammable. It's becoming, you see viral reels all the time. And I did actually post something the other day on my personal profile. It's like, it's so surreal to see these viral reels of an area that you actually live in. It's like, wow, I live in an area where a lot of people want to come either visit or invest. And it's quite a lovely feeling. So that has, social media and the investing of big companies like Louis Vuitton into Pulia, the Four Seasons, big global brands are investing into Pulia, and it is creating such a huge ripple effect of interest.
It is, but why are they investing there? I think that from of course, we take in consideration social media and everything, but from an investment perspective, I'm curious to understand, why are those companies investing there? Why is it geographic area? There is a development happening there in terms of companies coming around.
It's not really development as of companies, it's more lifestyle. When people come to Pulia, it's like no other place in Italy at all. The architecture is so unique. We have different types of properties that you can't find anywhere else in the country. The climate is absolutely fantastic. The food is absolutely fantastic. We have stunning coastline on both sides. I mean, they call the side, the Ionian side, the Italian Maldives. So people come here and they're like, oh my God, wow, this is incredible. And Pulia has been a very popular tourist spot for a very long time. And it wasn't until the pandemic started was when people were like, right, I need a bolt hole. I need somewhere to get away, that I can escape my life and, come on holiday once a year, generate an income. And that's really when Pulia started to really, really take off. And people were buying properties sight unseen.
Wow.
That's really when the market just started to go completely crazy. Because the lifestyle this place offers is just so fantastic. But the buzzword of La Dolce Vita, it may seem like a cliche, but that is really how a lot of people live down here. It's a very relaxed, beautiful climate, all the things like I said before, and it's become really attractive for investors.
Yeah, we've seen that in markets in the United States, right? In terms of what their growth was prior to COVID and then during COVID, right? Where they could drive to and really, live there because they weren't bound by, the things we used to be bound by. And that makes a lot of sense. I think it's something to be mindful of, like, where are the eyeballs, right? Where's the tourism opportunities? We often look at, hard numbers as investors, and the tourism piece, especially for a vacation rental, is enormous, right? And what's happening there. So those are really good points. What have been, I'm really curious about the pitfalls, like, even just putting in your money into an account and how nerve-wracking that can be in terms of, like you said, some people can actually just steal your money. So tell us a little about the top pitfalls that, investors that are looking at Italy can be mindful of and make sure they guardrail themselves to make sure that doesn't happen to them.
I always say that the best way to secure your investment is to make sure that, when you're closing your property, the property is sitting in an escrow account of a notary. So it's in a very, very safe, it's a public official's, escrow account. And the property deed, the title would actually be transferred over until the title is completely clean, so free of any mortgages, debts. That's one thing. The biggest thing people come across is buying a house, which what we call a casa abusiva, which it means an illegal property. And what does that mean? It's very hard to find a property here that the Italians haven't modified in some way. What do I mean by that? Adding in an extension, putting in a pool.
Well, for sure. I don't know how my
and
is still standing. Honestly, I have no idea how that house in Brazil, my grandparents were Italian, how that house is still standing. All the Italians that moved there had extensions in their houses, and I have no idea how the hell they do that, because he was not in construction.
Oh yeah. And the small, tiny, minute detail of getting planning permission for said works. A lot of the time it's like, nah, let's just leave it, So when the time comes to sell the property, unless you have someone who knows what they're doing, helping you, you can end up buying a property that is completely full of problems. And then you're taking on the responsibility of that problem. So it's really important to understand, like I can see now because I see it all the time. I'll give you a prime example, a veranda. So a veranda, but like you have like a villa and you have this massive, beautiful veranda and they've enclosed that veranda with glass. Why? Because they want to create extra living space. Totally allowed, unless you get prior planning permission beforehand. So a lot of the times these things have to be knocked down. And if you're wanting to buy a house and get a mortgage, the bank will go and check the property and see all the things that are illegal about this property and they won't give you the mortgage. So it's really important to understand first, to advise the agent that you're working with, I have to get a mortgage. Please let me know if this property is clean of any kind of building, problems. If there is a problem, can it be fixed prior to closing? Because sometimes the bank will go, okay, if the owner is willing to modify what was done, and then the plans are clean, matching what's in that in the local community, so the town hall, they will pass it through.
What I was going to ask too is, in investing and as I think about like properties we look for, it's like sometimes the more issues they have, the better deal you can get, right? So
Yeah.
there's hair on it, if you will, right? We don't want the perfect retail property as investors. We want something that, other people couldn't figure out and we can figure out, right? So as you're talking, I'm thinking the building issues, although you don't, want a tremendous amount, are the ones that, if I'm just Mary and, whomever, and I'm coming, I'm gonna go wait. I don't want to deal with that. But as an investor, I'm like, I'll deal with that. Yeah, I'll take that on. So if I do have the building issues, and is there an amount of building issues that are like, kind of recommended, if you will, like, I don't know, half the house or a quarter of the house, or just like one extension is the issue? Like, I'm thinking like we're in a market that's creativity, especially if you're saying the town is as popular as it is, right? So that also then tells me there's a lot of competition, and then that means the prices are getting driven up. So then that says, okay, if I'm going to get into Italy, because I have my investor hat on right now, I got to think about creativity and the problem properties, excuse me. So then, all right, good, building issues. I want those, but how much do I want? So can you walk us through that? Because I know the women listening are probably thinking what I'm thinking, because it's like, I don't want like a perfectly buttoned up property, right? I want the ones that these other people on Instagram don't want, right? So what would be the suggestions there, or just some kind of tips around that?
I have two actually. So the first, talking about the building issues. If the property needs structural work done to it and it hasn't been like you'd have to knock half of it down before it's acceptable, that's one thing. If you're looking to buy a house, and this happens a lot here as well, if you're looking to buy a house to rent this out and generate an income, and a lot of the properties have something called a depositor, which is like a garage, right? And so they make these
You're saying a garage, you're saying?
A garage, yeah, sorry,
Gotcha.
a garage by Aussie
Just want to make sure we're saying the same thing. Okay.
Garage, sorry.
I understood. My Portuguese mind understood.
So we have this garage that are made into bedrooms. However, if you want to Airbnb this, you need to make sure that this living space is actually able to be habitable living space. Otherwise, they won't pass it through. So you end up buying this 3-bedroom house, which is actually a 1-bedroom house with 2 bedrooms in the garage. So that's something you need to really, really careful of. I want to touch on something that, because I love a diamond in the rough. Like, this is something that when I think about real estate investing, I want to go where other people don't want to go. I want to, look beyond what people are doing. Like, everyone's happening in this part of Pulia where I am right now. And I have been following the Lower South. This is a great tip for women who want to invest and get an absolute bargain. Long game. This is a long game investment. I've been following the Lower South for 3 years. And it's natural progression where what's happening up here is becoming so expensive. People are going to start going further south. And look, the towns are more quiet. It's a little bit like the Wild West, but the beaches are phenomenal and the properties are off the Richter scale beautiful. You've got these old antique houses like in the center with these garden courtyards,
God.
old vintage tiles, multi-level, split-level roof terraces that are very close to the beach and for like a third or even a quarter of the price of the properties up here.
How
And
far though? How far by car?
not far south, like so further south than Legend. So basically an hour and a half from an airport.
Okay.
And you're close to the beach and you're close to some really beautiful coastal towns. And the architects, the smart architects who I've been following for quite some time, are buying these properties at nothing, making them absolutely insanely beautiful and building in these split level roof terraces, these kind of plunge pools, and making them really rustic, minimal, and then selling them off for like, a huge profit. So ladies, if you're listening, look up, Google Lower Solento, because this is really where you're going to find some absolutely insane bargains. So I was looking the other day, as I said, I'm a total real estate nerd with the portal, and I was finding properties between 50 and 100,000 that have got all these stunning features close to the beach, and I'm like, wow, this is just, the mind is just like boggling with ideas.
Well, you're just speaking my love language, right? And start talking about the character of the property.
I know, and Jess and I want to go there next week, right? Well, while you're talking, I'm
So,
like
like,
going.
I'm-
I'm going on Expedia, and I'm like, when can I fly there?
We are traveling to Florida to find a property for a large luxury property for our short term rental. And in my head, I was like,
Same with me.
we might go to Italy.
I'm like,
That because it sounds more exciting to go there, and I'm just gonna give an excuse at least to go there and check the market. It's gonna be a business expensive list. Just
of course. I think what you're saying though, Nikki, is something just to put out there, make sure everyone's really hearing and listening. You said something really powerful, and you said, okay, where is the hot market? And then people are going to get outpriced in that hot market. And that is happening. That's a global tip. That's not just an Italy tip. That's an everywhere tip. Think of Austin, right? Austin's a very popular hot market in Texas. So do I want to invest in Austin? I don't know the market. I can't say yes or no. But what I know of hot markets is I'm like, what will be happening around Austin? What's about an hour and a half from Austin? And that's another area that Andres and I have looked at from a vacation rental perspective. It's literally an hour and a half or 2 hours outside of Austin. So your tip is so well taken. Literally, ladies, Google the hottest markets in the world and then say, okay, I'm not going to invest there. What's an hour and a half radius of those cities? And then you start to look at, movement happening there. Obviously, you don't want to be first in line. You never want to be the first. Architects are going there.
That's not the time to be the pioneers, ladies.
You're not the pioneers. I'm not a big fan of being a pioneers, right? You can't control a market. You can participate in one. Unless you have $1 billion, then be a pioneer.
Before.
But you're not. You're not a billionaire probably listening to this podcast. No offense. So you want to be part of the movement and kind of on the cusp of the movement, not leading the movement. The movement's already happening, but you want to get in the early side. And I love that recommendation that it's happening in Italy, because it reminds us all that it happens everywhere. It's a tip for everywhere. So I just want to make a mention of that. Nikki, I love this conversation. I want to continue the conversation. Jess and I are pumped. I think women, the biggest thing is fear. And so if I want to ask you this before we wrap. How do women kind of, and everyone listening to this, men too, our allies and the men that are on this journey with us, how do they move beyond the fear? Because there are probably some amazing opportunities right now in another country, especially Italy, that they could be really investing in. What are 1 or 2 steps? I mean, you obviously packed your bags and got to Italy after moving with your where you were. What would be some tips that you have for them, especially in wanting to invest in Italy, that they would kind of decrease that fear, right? Decrease that feeling scared. So any tips to share as we wrap things up?
I think the biggest fear is not taking action. So you're on Pinterest, you're making these vision boards, you're binge watching House Hunters International, you're watching Under the Tuscan Sun, or you're trying to embrace a bit of La Dolce Vita, and you're on this edge of, oh gosh, I really want to do this, but I don't know how to start, But I think the fear of not taking the action is probably the biggest thing to be scared of, because what's the worst that can happen? Right now, we are living in an environment where you can Google people that can help you, that have got a track record that can help you, that can help you in your own language. So that have done it before. There are communities, there are expat groups, there are, so many things on social media to assist. I've always been a very much an action taker. And I also very much understand and empathize with people who do get a bit paralyzed by fear. But I feel like if you really want something bad enough, you make it happen.
Yeah. Great advice. Nikki, this has been great. Where can the ladies listening learn more about you?
I have a Instagram page that your followers can follow me on, which is my handle is La Dolce Vita Lifestyle Magazine, or my personal profile is Nikki Taylor's _ La Dolce Vita. But the magazine Instagram is really fun because we share a real 360-degree insight into Italy, not just real estate, but lifestyle, culture, food. It's it's quite a fun page to follow.
Love it. Thank you so much. All this information you guys can find on our show notes. Now we're going to transition to our panelist 3 questions. And the first one, Nikki, is what is the most transformational book you ever read? In English.
In English, the most, well, okay, I'm going to be completely honest, right?
It's only me, you, and Andressa.
I'm a mum with 2 small kids, and I'm a single mum with 2 small kids. So my time to read has not been very, very abundant lately, but I have just finished an incredible book. It was actually written by a friend of mine in Australia. It's called Seconds, Please. Basically finding yourself in line after divorce. And I remember staying at home, and I couldn't stop reading this book. And, as a single mom that's exhausted, a lot of the time I read a page and I'm asleep, This book had me hooked. And I think as women, we can get so lost in our partners, in our marriages. We lose our identities. But if we become mothers and we forget who we are, this book, literally like the words were jumping out to me. So it's nothing to do with like real estate, but it's to do with a very personal journey that I'm experiencing right now.
Oh, all the ladies that are like, oh, no. Tell me again about this book because I'm going to take notes. We're hearing a lot about women's experiences after divorce, and they are really now stepping into their financial control per se. And they're in real estate is one of them. So this is going to be great. And ladies, we're going to put the title of the book and more specifics about the book on our show notes. The second question is, what's the most powerful routine that you do to create a financially free and balanced life, whatever balance means to you?
I'm a real believer that money is energy. So if I need to be a really great energetic match to work with people, if I'm off because I'm not balanced in my life, then I'm going to be in a funk and no one's going to want to come within 3 feet of me. So I really believe in trying to meditate. I've practiced a lot of affirmations. I really believe in gratitude and abundance. And I've just started exercising again after, that when you go into like the state of a separation, you become this completely like super fit, super balanced. And I'm like, I'm going through this process right now, but it's changed everything for me. Like I wake up, I've got my meditation, my exercise, and then I start my day feeling really, really great. And that attracts people to want to work with me. So it's kind of like a cycle like that.
Love it. Last question, Nikki. Which women, famous or not, inspire you the most?
Single moms. Yeah. Single moms who are really putting themselves out there and who are trying to be the best that they can for their kids, to try to create their own financial independence, and to also be that balance between a mother and a career woman and a friend and whatever they want to be. So I salute. I've never understood how hard it could be to be a mother as one being a single mother. But single mothers out there, I totally salute you. You are the unsung heroes of the world, really. But women that are, stepping into themselves, as you said, you might leave a relationship and you're becoming financially free. That satisfaction of standing on your own 2 feet and providing for your family, there is no better feeling. And I'm experiencing that right now. So yeah,
Thank
single
you
mother.
for that. Thank you for that. From a single mom to another single mom, and I know that the ladies that are listening here, the single moms, are feeling the same. So thank you for that, Nikki. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge. You sparked a lot of interest for Liz and I in the Italian market. I think our connections are just starting. Here.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for being on our show.
Thank you so much, Nikki.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to receive updates on our next interviews, go to our website, therealestateinvestor.com. There, you can subscribe to our show, become part of our investor community, and get updates on upcoming episodes.
If you like our show, please share it with other women who would benefit. And don't forget to leave us a rating on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. And as always, we encourage you to take one action as a result of today's show and put it into motion so you can live both a financially free and balanced life. Thanks for spending time with us.
Ciao.